Hello, it's Diane, and here is the third and final Irish journal that I made. This one is with a very vintage book called Irish Stories. I've had this for a long time. I no longer had any of the pages, and I didn't know if I was ever going to use this cover, but I still had it. I found it, and when I decided to do these Irish journals, I went looking for it in my stash, and I found it. It was pretty beat up. I put these nice metal corners on it, and I put some Mod Podge over it to kind of protect it. The edges are still a little bit worn, but I did put Mod Podge on them. I used a piece of elastic, and I just tied it in a bow, in a knot, and then a bow, and you can just slip it on and off. It's got 3 signatures. It's quite fat. Has a 2-inch spine, and I can't wait to show you this spine. I covered it with a heavy-duty vintage embroidered table runner, and I showed it in a recent video because I got it at the antique store, and it had these green leaves and these nuts, and someone commented on the video that they're Buckeye leaves and Buckeye nuts. But because of the green and because the fabric was quite sturdy, I thought this was going to be an awesome spine cover, and so I love the way it turned out. This image was on the back of the book, and you can see the wear and tear and just dirt staining. I cleaned it up as best I could. There was kind of ugly brown stain here. I scraped off some of it, and then I covered it with the lace. You can't even see it now. And there was a little bit of that same brown here, so I just put this little decorative lace. But that really just adds to the attractiveness of the book now, having those bits of lace added on, I think. Okay, so there are 3 signatures, as I probably already said. Oh, I didn't put anything on the inside cover. I'll probably put This Book Belongs To up here. I don't know if I'll put a pocket on, because there's a pocket on the back. So I use coffee dyed paper. The scrapbooking paper is coffee dyed, and the printer paper is dyed with a drink mix plus food coloring. This is vintage ledger paper, and there's vintage bias tape and rickrack here. And I cut this shamrock out with my Cricut. I stamped To the Moon and Back up here. I did a little bit of stenciling in this one. You can see it here, and I made this little curved pocket with a doily on it. And there's a little green children's card and a little one of the journaling spots that somebody gave me with some flocking on it. It says My Diary. A stamp up here. This is the same from the same music book from the other book that I mentioned. That's this is about Mozart's Magic Flute, but the illustrations were green, so I included it. It's just a little strip of vintage ledger there. And this little note from a tablet that I have, that I just got, has green on it, so I included that. This is the handkerchief that I used for this journal, and I don't have much. I used up all of the sheer, and pieces of it got put into all 3 journals. And of course I used up all of this one. As I said, I just used a complete handkerchief. But I have 2 scraps of this one left, and this one has a stain on it. But it was the green gingham that I wanted to mostly use in this book, but it does have a scrap of the sheer, and I stitched it, zigzagged it to this gingham because I didn't want it to ravel. So the raw edges are stitched down. But that's a flap, and there's some lace up here. Again, some stenciling. A green paper clip that I colored with alcohol inks, and a paint chip. And I made a pocket in each signature with the handkerchief. This is a printed, looks like burlap with lace on it, but it's just a printed trim that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I believe this is a vintage, like an upholstery trim, and there's a little fancy paper clip or safety pin there on a vintage postcard image stitched to coffee dyed paper. And this trifold time card that I got from Denise's shop. I decoupaged a piece of napkin on it, and then you can just journal on it. And I held it shut with one of the green paper clips. There's a little piece of yellow rosebud eyelet fabric that I stitched on the edge there. This is one of the postcard images that I just printed big and just used it in the center of the signature. There's some flowers. I didn't mention all of the journals have these green polka dot flowers, which I got from this Stampin' Up! Punch that has 3 flowers on it. I used the 2 small ones. Some more stenciling. It's a green fabric there on the edge. Some of the stamping I did in green and some in brown. And there's one of the Quizmo cards, and I punched a hole here with a reinforcement and a little piece of satin ribbon, or silk ribbon I mean. This is a decoupage napkin on this index card. Ledger paper. It's been dyed with the green. There's a little fabric collage with this bright colored trim. I love this image. Got spunky little Irish boy on an airplane, some kind of a flying machine. It's got a flag behind him with a harp on it. There's some trim that I stitched on with green zigzag stitching, and a card tucked in there. And some of the game chips from the vintage bingo game. And on the back of each signature in this book, I used one of the postcard images and then just collaged a few journaling spots on it. There's some more vintage ledger here, again with bias tape and rickrack, an old journaling spot. This says, "Find joy in the little things." Again, a children's vintage playing card and this little tag. Someone sent it to me. Here's another page from that vintage book about making dolls. You can see part of her green dress, and you'll see the doll on the other side. Vintage ledger here with some washi tape. And then this one has a piece of the vintage handkerchief, some rickrack, and then a piece of a vintage doily that I cut apart. A paint chip. Another pocket. All the pockets are the same. They just have different paper clips or safety pins. This one has a bulb pin. And a plain catalog card with decoupage napkin on it. I copy dyed that. Some fabric along the edge. This is from a vintage, excuse me, a vintage songbook. I just love that beautiful illustration there. And the song is not Irish, but it's called Fairy Tales. It's a Bohemian Czech folk tune, but because it's fairy tales, I thought it was good in this, and I just love that image. And then on this side, I just put on a decorative element and some journaling places. I used some of the Tim Holtz cardstock stickers and attached them. I glued them down to cardstock and then glued them on as a pocket. This is a scrap of the patterned paper that you can journal on, and a green flinch card. Vintage. I think that game was 1951. I love that bird fabric. And I stitched along the edge. I don't know if you can see it, but some of this green fiber is stitched along the edge here. And those fibers are available in my shop too. There's a little pocket here with a tag with mushrooms on it. And there's this big doll with the green dress. Look at that fancy hairdo. And there's the postcard image and then the journaling spots. The third signature again starts with the vintage ledger paper and seam or bias tape and rickrack. Kindness Matters, and the curved pocket with the doily. I love that little girl. She's on the front of journal number 1. And then a green children's playing card. This is from a vintage children's book, but it was a much bigger and sturdier page. You'll see the little girl on the other side, and I put on a little stamped journaling spot there. Here's a piece from this table runner that I used as a decoration in this fabric collage. I zigzagged around the edges because I think it would ravel quite easily. But I like the way that collage looks in here. Again, the fairy garden paper with a little bit of lace and a tag that's been coffee dyed, and this cute little boy. And a paint chip. The third pocket with a paint chip inside and a decoupaged index card. This one has a rusted paper, safety pin that I got from Denise's shop, A Tattered Dream, on Etsy. And this is again an Irish folk song, Children of Kildare. I use that as the center of the signature. There's some fabric here. This is a piece of vintage wallpaper. Here's another image that I found online, and I backed it with this diagonally striped paper that I used on the back here. He's so cute. A little bird sitting on a shamrock with an Irish hat. And a blank, well, I guess it's a lined index card with decoupage napkin on it. And there's the other side of that songbook. It's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Nice big stamp here. I stamped it off page so it wouldn't take up too much of the page. That says deliver to. And a cute little kitten image with some collaged journaling spots. A green polka dot pocket. And a library tag with some fabric stitched to the top. Again, green polka dots. And a paint chip. So this will be listed in my shop under the name Irish Stories. So please visit my shop. I will link it below, and tell me what you think of the journals that I made, and I really had fun making them. I hope you like them. Bye bye.